A threatening storm is coming. Everyone in the borderlands can see it, so every last man able to fight packs his things up and marches to prepare for Tarmangaden. Concurrently, the Forsaken gather for a meeting in which Moridin insists on his orders for them to kill Matt and Perrin, and forbids any of them to rescue Semirag, since, according to him, she deserves her punishment. Lastly, he orders Graendal to make sure Rand doesn't succeed in bringing peace to Aradomen. In Altara, Masima leads the few men he still has under his command after the Battle of Molden. They are surprised on a ridge by Fail and her followers. At her order, they shoot arrows, butchering their Dragonsworn, while Fail herself kills Masima with a knife to the heart, finally ending the threat of the false prophet's army. Not too far away, Banner General Tylee Kurgan is returning to Ebudar after fighting alongside Perrin, when suddenly her army is attacked by hundreds of Trollocs that weren't detected, even though they are very close to the city. Tylee defeats the creatures, but one thing is certain: the Seanchan are finally beginning to believe Trollocs are more than superstition. Through a strategic masterpiece, Rodel Ituralde defeats a Seanchan army that outnumbers him 3-1 at the Battle of Darluna. But the Seanchan keep coming at him, and 2 weeks later he is forced to make a last stand inside an abandoned steading to prevent the Damani from attacking with one power. However, Ituralde is surprised completely by the arrival of Rand, who presents himself as the Dragon Reborn and asks the general for peace with the Seanchan. In exchange, Rand guarantees that the invaders will be kept out of Aradomen, but the dragon will need Ituralde up in the borderlands to prepare for the last battle, for which he will provide the wolf with 100 Ashaman. Ituralde accepts and moves with his 50,000 remaining men to the Saldaean border with Blight to guard against Trolloc raids. Back in his manor house, Rand ponders on why Lews Therin's attempt to seal the Dark One failed in the Age of Legends, when a Seafolk party arrives, led by Hareen, Rand's advisor, and he tries to convince her that Saidin is now cleansed, but to no avail since almost no one trusts men who can channel. He then gathers with the Aiel clan chiefs and orders Rourke to capture the members of the Merchants' Council, the heads of the most powerful Damani merchant houses, to protect them from Graendal, and to gather them to choose a new king. One night, Rand enters the Leiron Riad by accident and meets Moridin, whom he now recognizes as Ishmael. Both men note that they now share a strange connection, but the time for their fight hasn't come yet. At the same time, Cadsuane is in charge of interrogating Semirag. However, the Forsaken seems made out of stone, since she yields no information whatsoever, and Rand doesn't allow anyone to torture the woman. After many days of failure, Cadsuane realizes the Forsaken won't be intimidated by threats of physical pain, but rather by crushing her ego. So she proceeds to humiliate her, spanking her and forcing the woman to eat her food off the floor, succeeding at breaking her. Later, the Forsaken is considering how she will torture Cadsuane in retaliation, when Shaider Haran appears. The Harbinger of the Dark One releases her from the shield containing her, giving the woman a last chance to prove herself. Elsa, one of the Aes Sedai sworn to Rand, comes and offers Semirag the male Adam she stole from Cadsuane, revealing herself as a Black Aja member. Not wasting time, Semirag disguises herself as a Cerebrine woman, entering Rand's rooms and clasping the male Adam around his neck. He becomes furious as well as terrified at the same time, feeling himself trapped in a box again and powerless, since the Forsaken, using the Adam to channel through him, uses Saidin to hurt Min. Even worse, she forces Rand's hands to choke Min to death. Desperate, Rand looks for a way to escape the Forsaken's control, and suddenly becomes aware of a strange force which he can reach. Lews Therin's voice inside his head tells him not to use it, for it is the true power, and its source is the Dark One himself. But not having any other choice, Rand channels the true power into the atom, breaking it. Once free, he channels Balefire, annihilating both Semirhage and Elsa. He succeeds in saving Min, but he is rendered completely incapable of feeling emotions, becoming harder than steel to avoid being broken again. For having lost the atom to Semirhage, Rand exiles Cadsuane, forbidding her to show her face again in his presence. While all of this happened, Aviendha had resumed her training to become a Wise One, which makes her wonder what honor is left for her to earn. Not a Maiden of the Spear anymore, not yet a Wise One. She's being constantly punished by the Elder Wise Ones, but never told the reason behind the chastisements. One day, she's in the middle of one such punishment when one of the guards at the gates of the manor starts feeling sick, and suddenly starts boiling from the inside out, with a black fire that cannot be stopped, incinerating the entrance to the manor. Aviendha, realizing it is a bubble of evil, acts quickly, channeling massive amounts of water from the nearby river into the remains of the man, finally quenching the fire. The next day, while she's in the middle of another of those pointless tasks, Min asks her why she doesn't step up to the Wise Ones for the ridiculous punishments. Angered, Aviendha does exactly that. She confronts the Wise Ones, who were actually expecting this reaction from her, asking Aviendha if she believes she can be their equal, and when she says yes, they send her to Roirian through a gateway to complete her training and finally become a full Wise One. Egwene is still reduced as a novice in the White Tower, being beaten every day by Sylviana, the Mistress of Novices, and dosed with forkroot every few hours. However, she managed to earn the respect of many Aes Sedai due to her impressive resilience. Moreover, she slowly earns the trust of the Sitters, and eventually she finds out the Black Aja Hunters, who are initially reluctant to interact with Egwene, but she is able to convince them that Elaida is not the rightful Amyrlin, since she was raised with the help of Black Sisters. Egwene encourages them to meet with members of the other Ajas to ease the tensions among them. One day, she is summoned to attend Elaida during a dinner with sitters from the other 6 Ajas. When Elaida mocks Egwene about her warnings that the Shonchan will attack the White Tower, Egwene's temper bursts, openly chiding Elaida for her mistakes. The most serious of them being Elaida's plan to add another oath to the 3 every Aes Sedai take, a 4th oath of obedience to the Amyrlin. Filled with rage, Elaida punishes Egwene physically with one power, breaking tower law, after which Egwene is thrown in the deepest cell of the basement. Meanwhile, within the rebel Aes Sedai camp, Lelaine, one of the most influential sitters of the whole, is gaining power among the sisters by claiming support for Egwene, the missing Amyrlin. So, Siuan Sanche has to prevent Lelaine from fully usurping Egwene's authority in her absence. At the same time, she begins to ask herself whether she now has room in her life for a relationship, since she is Amyrlin no more, and she recently acknowledged that she's in love with Gareth Bryne. She confesses to Bryne why she broke her oath to him, telling him about Jatar's foretelling 20 years prior, and how she's the only witness left alive, since she doesn't know about Moraine's survival. Not far away from his headquarters at the village of Dolan, Gawain leads his 300 younglings that are being hunted down by Gareth Bryne's forces. He's beginning to realize Elaida is trying to get him killed, but he's still unsure which side to choose in this war. That lasts until he overhears an Aes Sedai meeting, learning that Egwene has been captured. Fearing that she might be executed, Gawain leaves the town, abandoning the younglings to rescue Egwene. He travels to the rebel Aes Sedai camp, looking for Gareth Bryne's help, but the general tells him that Egwene herself sent specific orders not to be rescued. Perrin is leaving Malden, leading 100,000 refugees by foot, since the Ashaman are still too tired after the battle to open gateways. He's having trouble coming to terms with being a lord, and with the ecstasy he feels in battle because of his wolf brother abilities. But one day, as he stops with his army to camp for the night, he decides he will have to make a choice soon, whether to truly become a lord and to embrace the wolf inside him. That same night, Fael gathers with the other women that had been taken captive at Malden and performs a small ceremony outside the camp to mourn and remember Roland and the other Aielmen that helped them during their captivity. After defeating the Shanton at the Malvide Narrows, Mat leads the band of the Red Hands through Morandi on his way to Caemlyn, while trying to forget that he's now a Shanton prince. The road takes him through a secluded village called Hinderstap, and since the band is running low on food supplies, he decides to try and purchase whatever he can in town. The locals say they haven't got enough supplies to sell, but he tricks them into betting a full wagon loaded with food on a throw of the dice. As always, Mat's luck helps him, but the mayor of the town tells him they need to go away from Hinderstap before the sun sets. Mat doesn't believe it at first, but when it gets late and the sun goes down, the town turns into a living nightmare. Every person becomes frenzied, acting like animals and killing each other with their bare hands. Mat has to fight his way to an inn where the Aes Sedai of his retinue were staying, and through their combined effort they manage to escape the town, killing many of its inhabitants. They wait the whole night outside the village, and when dawn comes, Mat ventures again into Hinderstap, trying to reclaim the wagon he won. To his surprise, he finds everyone back to normal, even some of those he killed that are alive again. The mayor explains this has been happening for some time now, a curse probably created by the pattern being twisted by the Dark One's stirring. Before they leave, he gives Mat a drawing depicting him and tells him a woman was looking for him. A few miles ahead on the road, Mat camps before entering the town of Trostair, where the woman distributing the drawing supposedly is. But surprisingly, she comes to him, revealing herself to be Verin Sedai, who was pulled towards Mat through his Taviran effects. She offers Mat to transport the band to Caemlyn, but in return, he has to promise not to leave the city for 10 days. After thinking it through, Mat agrees to the terms, and Verin gives him a letter for him to open after those 10 days are gone. Meanwhile, in Ebudar, Tuon holds court after returning from her captivity within the Band of the Red Hands. She receives Beslan, Queen Tylin's son, who swears the oaths of fealty, being raised as King of Altara under Shantan overlordship. Immediately after, she receives news that the Dragon Reborn requests a meeting with her. At that moment, Tylik Kurgan breaks into the throne room to bring Tuon the news about her clash against Trollocs. Worried, Tuon decides to accept the meeting with the dragon, after which Captain General Galgon offers a plan to capture Marath Damani, hoping to learn from them how to travel, in case her meeting with Rand goes awry. After a few days in the dungeons, Egwene is released and escorted back to her rooms, where she receives a visit from Varys, came back to the White Tower after leaving Mat and the band in Caemlyn. Verin reveals to a shocked Egwene that she is Black Aja, but she secretly worked many years as an inside agent. She gives Egwene a list of names of more than 200 Black Aja members she was able to gather through the years, and also warns her that the Forsaken Messana is hidden inside the White Tower. Dark Friends are bound to the Dark One's oaths in such a way that they are unable to betray him until the hour of their death. However, Verin found a loophole in the oath, which allows her to reveal everything she knows within the literal hour of her death. since she drank poison and is dying at that very moment. Varen lies down on Egwene's bed and peacefully passes away. Immediately, Egwene meets with Swan in Tel'aran Riad to warn her that Shiriam, Egwene's second-in-command, is mentioned in Varen's list. But in the middle of their meeting, for the Seanchan are finally striking Tar Valon, as she foretold they would. As night falls, the Battle of Tar Valon ensues. The Aes Sedai were taken by surprise, but Egwene knew the attack was coming, and she swiftly leads the resistance, successfully driving the Seanchan back, although not without casualties. I've covered the battle thoroughly on its own video, link above. After being rescued from the tower, Egwene gathers the sitters of the rebel camp and shares with them Varen's revelations. Using the oath rod she took from the tower, she swears the 3 oaths and then declares that she's not Black Aja, proving herself true. Then she demands the sitters to re-swear the oaths to give every Aes Sedai a chance to prove herself loyal. Through many such meetings, gathering the sisters by Aja, 50 Black Aja members are captured and executed, Shiriam among them. However, the remaining 20 on Varen's list were able to escape somehow. Since the tower's defenses were damaged during the battle, Egwene decides it's the right moment to assault the walls of the city. But just when Gareth Bryne was about to give the order, a delegation of sisters comes forth from the island, proclaiming that Egwene has been chosen as Amberlin by them too, given that Elaida was taken captive during the battle, and the Amberlin seat is vacant. Egwene, pleased that no blood had to be spilled, enters the White Tower for the formal ceremony, where she ascends as the rightful Amberlin to both factions, finally ending the schism. Simultaneously, Rand travels to Bandar Eben, where he orders the distribution of the grain he brought by ship among the starving population, while he interrogates one of the members of the Merchant Council, trying to gather news from King Al-Salam's whereabouts, and also Graendal, whom he thinks might be hiding in Arad Domen. Rand doesn't get any useful information, but Nynaeve is able to track down the prison where one of the king's messengers had been kept. With the help of some Saldaean soldiers, she finds a spy sent by Graendal, and through questioning him, Rand gets the location of Graendal's hideout, Natrin's Barrow, an abandoned fortress at the southeast of Arad Domen. But first, Rand's priority is his meeting with the Daughter of the Nine Moons. He had proposed the city of Falme as an appropriate gathering place, and Tuon accepts. However, as soon as negotiations commence, it gets clear that they cannot reach an agreement, since Rand demands that the Seanchan sue for peace, to fight united against the Dark One in the last battle. While Tuon, influenced by the Seanchan version of the prophecies of the dragon, is adamant that the dragon must kneel to the crystal throne. Therefore, negotiations fail completely, driving Tuon to finally step up as the new Empress of Seanchan, and to approve General Gulgan's proposed airborne assault on Tar Valon, with the goal of capturing as many Marthemani as possible. Upon returning to Arad Domen, Rand decides it's time to face Graendal, so he weaves a gateway to Natrin's Barrow. Channeling a massive bolt of balefire, Rand wipes out from existence the whole building, its inhabitants included. Determining that Graendal must be dead, Rand goes back to Bandar Eben, where he receives the news that all of the food that he brought into the city by ship has spoiled prematurely. But Rand, incapable of doing anything about it, just turns his back on Arad Domen, in a scene that shows just how emotionless he has become. Through a gateway, he travels to Tyr, where he tells Darlin Cisnera, the one appointed by him as King of Tyr, to have an army ready to march on Shale Ghul, since the last battle is about to begin. Immediately after, Rand travels again to meet with a representative from the massive Borderlander armies that have come south. As it turns out, the messenger is Húrin, the thief-taker that accompanied Rand back in Book 2. Húrin tells the dragon that the Borderlander kings want to meet him inside the city of Farmaring, where he cannot channel. Rand is angered by this, and believing it to be some kind of trap, he refuses to meet with them. Nevertheless, he proclaims that, should the Borderlanders choose to fight at Tarmangaden, he will provide gateways for the armies to be transported, and leaves the choice to them. Afterwards, he goes back to Tyr, where he finds an unexpected visitor in his rooms, Tam al'Thor, his father, who was brought by Cadsuane in an attempt to extract some emotion from Rand. Their reunion goes well at first, but when Tam casually mentions Cadsuane, Rand realizes she was the one to bring him there, so he bursts in anger, channeling the One Power and almost killing Tam with balefire. But at seeing his dad's terrified face, Rand comes to his senses and, ashamed of himself, travels to Ebudar, set on destroying the Shonshan on his own, using the access key to the Choran Call. But once there, he marvels in the order the Shonshan were able to impose in the lands they conquered, while he ponders on whether he was right to smother his emotions, since that fired back on him, nearly making him kill his father. Feeling sick, he travels again, this time to the very peak of Dragonmount, where he sits in the snow to meditate. Aided by Lews Therin's voice, he reaches the conclusion that he's alive again to fix the dragon's original failure. So, seizing as much power as can be held through the access key, he turns Saidin into the statue itself, making the Choran Call explode, never to be used again. Taken by a sudden sense of peace, Rand lets out a true laugh, the first in a long time. From a hole in the wall of the tower, left by the Shonshan attack, Egwene sees the light coming from Dragonmount and marks the event in her head, knowing it must mean something. Being the first book written by Sanderson, I can say the transition felt natural. The characters' personalities were portrayed very closely to how Jordan presented them, especially Rand. Maybe Matt had a few clunky moments, but nothing terrible. As of now, Tarmangaden is about to begin, so if you like my content, please subscribe to my channel and give me a like. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.